This guy just said, after taxes, I made about $7 million. Great day, VGs. Today we're taking a look at how some people on the internet made their first fortune. This may give you some idea on how you should start your own business or just how to get rich and financially independent. Here we start. This is from anongeek on Reddit. I'm a software engineer who is fairly competent. I've worked with folks who are better, but people keep telling me I'm really good. Wow. During or after college, I worked at a couple of startups that merely got absorbed into larger companies. But I learned a lot. In fact, after working both at startups and big companies, I can say you should always choose a startup because you will learn much more. Wow, as a computer science student who wants to be a software engineer in the future, goddamn, this is helpful. I also plan to work in a startup if possible. Let's just continue. Then I worked at a company that had an IPO that was successful. But the company was not long-term successful and the stock tanked before the lockout was over, so my stock was mostly worthless. The company I worked for next, telecommunications equipment, ended up being pretty successful and have a profitable IPO. After taxes, I made about $7 million. Goddamn, that's so much. Most of this was just luck though. I had friends who were just as smart and either worked at the wrong company or joined after the company was too big. Skill counts a little, but it is mostly luck. After making this money, I spent a few months traveling and working on recreational projects. But I eventually got bored with working on my own small things. A friend was starting a company that had a good chance of doing good for the planet. I worked there mostly out of a desire to contribute something. I must be a good guesser because somehow I made a couple million at this latest company. I'm now trying to figure out the next place I want to work. Goddamn, I want to work at this guy. Now for Osmanthus. Stock options from a major software company in the 80s and 90s. I do feel that my own personal effort did have something to do with the value of the options going so high. This is the actual formula for getting rich. 1. Do something that earns a lot. Okay, number 2. Spend substantially less than you earn. And don't pay interest on anything. Instead, collect interest from your invest. God damn, I still can't get over from number 1. The first should be obvious, but again and again, I've seen articles in magazines telling people how they can rich by simply saving. This is bullcrap. You must earn a lot to cover not only expenses, but also inflation and unexpected expenses. The second is where many people in my own situation screwed up big time. Rather than letting their wealth accumulate, they spent it just as they got it, or even before they got... I'm really sorry, just can't get over number 1. Okay, I'll be serious. Or even before they got it using credit cards or loans. Thus, instead of allowing their investments to gain value, they paid interest on it instead. This is horribly foolish. Instead, live well below your means. Don't buy a fancy sports car until buying it with cash is nothing to you. Don't borrow money for anything. Buy it in cash or don't buy it. As the years progress, it's the difference between working the rest of your life and retiring young. Now for the next user, it's Bookalem Dave. I got in an early startup, worked really hard for 30 years and cashed out when we sold. It's not generational wealth or anything, but kids, college is paid for and my husband and I are set for retirement. We wouldn't be nearly in this position had I not maxed out my retirement contribution every year and invested it 100% within the company. Next is Happy Badger. Family, 300 plus minus years ago. Wow, that is ancient. My dad's family happened to be merchant caste in a city, which suddenly went through a massive economic boom. They went from what would be petty bourgeoisie today to obscenely wealthy over 2 generations, all the while marrying into further money. My grandfather on that side started a business after the Second World War, which took off under him and my dad. So between that and the historical fortune, they're somewhere in the 9-digit range. Haha, lesson learned, have rich family, guys. My mother's family was Campano nobility throughout the Neapolitan Renaissance, and they also married into some sort of powerful Ukrainian family. The main splinter of her family succeeded in the US at the turn of the century. Then again during the Second World War, before emigrating to Romania and getting in good with the communists. Their money matured over the 20th century and she's worth somewhere in the upper 8-digit range, if not lower 9-digit. Both fortunes are largely locked up in long-term investments, with very little being held as liquid assets. The former thinks as a dynasty, which is probably going to unravel with my generation, and the latter is large enough that they can lose it if they try. That being said, I live independently of both families, and outside of later inheritance and a few years of all my savings, somewhere in the mid-5 digits, come from work and buying stakes in nightlife adventures. I'm also planning to becoming a neurosurgeon, albeit in public health. So if all goes according to plan, this will put me in at least 7s by my 30s and self-made money. Okay, we have some humble guy here. Next is Pi Anna. I'm just gonna say it Pi because it's 314159. I worked for the right startups. I left one company but exercised my options because I suspected they would not succeed and went to a different, smaller startup. In fact, within 10 years, both companies had IPOs. I used some of the money to pay off the mortgage and invested the rest. 66% in conservative investments and the rest as venture capital. Venture number 1 lost 80k in 5 years. Venture number 2 gained 300k in 3 years. Consulted for shares in 2 startups. Value went from few 100k to 0 over 5 years. Venture number 5 gained 50k in 10 years. Venture number 6 still not liquid but has gained 400k. Venture number 7 probably tanked. Conservative investments have gained about 5% per year for 20 years. Drive a 20+ year old car. Working for my last startup, I hope now. I'm getting too old for the pressure. Now for the last one is I Can't Think This Late. Wow, what a cool username. Signed with Sony Records. I'm 24, been playing drums since I was 3. My uncle was a studio drummer. Worked my ass off growing up, practicing 3 to 4 hours a day, ended up majoring in percussion theory. I guess my advice would be to keep at it. Pick what you want to do, and don't quit until you're doing it. Also, if your only goal is to be worth $1 million+, don't go out and buy stupid crap. Just because you can afford it, doesn't mean you need a Ferrari. Wow, the last one was different. I really wasn't expecting that. All I was expecting was investing, businesses, and saving up. Never really expected someone here to get rich by music. I guess some people really have the talents and luck to be rich at this. What do you think of this? Just comment it down below how would you like to get rich. See you next time, VGs.